115 to go. Then we got another nice little wooden box here. And what this one has in it is, this is a Starrett number 224 micrometer set. So this is a 0 to 4 inch micrometer set. And this up top here says it's the Handy Automotive Service Set, comprising micrometer 0 to 4 inch and a number 452B cylinder gauge. So what you've got is, you've got this micrometer, and it's got 3 micrometer wrenches in here. You got this little doohickey here, 2 larger ones. So these are anvils for this micrometer. So you change out this anvil on the end here, and essentially that allows you to turn this micrometer into several different size micrometers. And these are standards. There's some rust on that one. This one looks pretty good. 3 inch, a 2 inch, and a 1 inch standard. So you can basically, once you put your anvil in, you can use your micrometer wrenches to adjust the micrometer and calibrate it. And then you got nothing hiding down below here, which is kind of weird. You would think there's something that should be in that big empty space. And then this must be the cylinder gauge here. This is a Starrett. Well, it's, again, it says up here that this is a 452B cylinder gauge. So this must be for pistons, cylinders on a car engine. And it looks like the way this works is you adjust this maybe as a rough adjustment. There you go, that's moving more freely. This must lock. I don't know. Not quite sure how this works, but you get this long rod, and it looks like this goes down inside the bore, and you use this maybe to measure the difference in the diameter of the cylinder, and maybe if you turn it while it's in there, maybe you can see how out of round the cylinder is. I don't know, but that's certainly an interesting piece there, and that fits perfectly in there in this little holder. So I've never seen this kind of a setup here. This is a micrometer set specifically for the automotive industry, apparently, because it's got that cylinder thing included in there. So it's see if I can get a shot of that up top there. So you can see it's up here. It says 914 Starrett Handy Automotive Service Set, comprising the number 224-AA micrometer 0.4 inch and the number 452B cylinder gauge. So no idea on what the value of that is, but even just the as a micrometer set alone, I would think that's got some value. So let's say fortunately this is peeling off. I guess I should glue that down before that gets out of control. Let's say I got this for 20 bucks. So that gets me down to $95. All right, so the next item is this Jacobs chuck, and it's got quite a bit of rust on it. You can see the patina on it from the rust, but it's actually free. The jaws look actually good, and it actually moves pretty smooth, so it's kind of strange. But this is a 14N, so this is a ball bearing Jacobs 14N chuck on an R8 collet. So I figured even in the condition it's in, that's worth a 10. So we'll say that. Let's say I gave 10 for that. So that gets us down to 85. Little plastic box, hand tachometer. This is the Nagashima Keiki Company Limited. So this is another tack. I don't even remember buying this one. Must have just been in with some other stuff. But yeah, so this is a interesting little tachometer. Asahi hand tachometers. The instructions are in there. So somehow that works. That's got some sort of clockwork mechanism inside of it. It's like a stopwatch. Huh. Have to play with that one of these days. Let's call this $5 since I don't have the foggiest idea what that's worth. What was I down to, 85? So that makes it 80. Now the Starrett. Here's a Starrett 436 XRL-1 micrometer. That's okay. That's a nice little mic. Excellent condition by the looks of it. It's got the carbide tips on it. Click stop. That's a nice little mic. It's an earlier one. Got the original micrometer wrench and the original instructions in there and in the original box. Oh, that's a honey for the money. That's $10 all day long. That gets us down to $70. Oh, up on the shelf behind the lathe that he had, I spotted this carriage stop. It's a nice micrometer carriage stop off of a lathe, and there's no way that this is off of the lathe that he had sitting there. The lathe that he had sitting there was a really old, early one with flat ways. This is clearly off of a lathe that had larger V-style ways on it. And I thought, you know, I knew I could get this for next to nothing, so I figured why not, you know, get it. If I'm lucky, because it's such a nice one, that it might fit one of my lathes, and if it doesn't, I'm betting I could turn around and sell this thing on eBay for a few bucks. So I'm saying I gave $5 for that. We'll call that, so that puts us down to 65. Oh, I hope nobody sees this video and falls in love with this micrometer stop, because I just checked and it actually fits really nicely on the Vernon lathe. I've got a micrometer stop that came with the Vernon lathe, but I think this one might be nicer. Other than the rust being on the end, it just it seems like a more modern version. Alright, so I think we're down to $65. And next group of items, we got a little fly cutter. It's got some surface rust on it, but it'll clean up. That's usable. I've got this R8 face mill, indexable face mill. This is, you put 3 carbide cutters in there. There are 3 in there now. I have no idea what those go for new, but you know, depending on the name brand, those can be expensive. Don't know who makes this one. It has some rust on this collet, but I think it'll clean up. And this just says 2R8 on it. I don't see a manufacturer's name on this. I actually got 2 of those. This one is unfortunately the way it was sitting in the box. It's that side was facing down and got some moisture on it. That's a smaller diameter one there. Same idea though. Because of the condition that these are in. Now let's say for these 3 cutters right here, let's call that $5. And I'm down to $60. Several micrometers that I didn't care about, but yeah, they were there, so I just added them. This is number 436, 2 to 3 inch. This is number 436, 1 inch. So these 2 probably came out of a set originally. Then there's this little cheesy one here. I don't even know who makes that one. And then this is a nice little Starrett right here. It's got the click stop, and it's actually got a little bit of surface rust here and there, but it's not too bad. I think it would clean up and be a usable mic. No box for that one. And then what do we got in here? Oh, this is the pouch ripped right at the snap. A little telescopic gauge set. Really small ones. And I don't know what the deal is here, why this has no rod in it. But I wonder if this is so you can hold these perpendicular? I don't know. This is so dirty I can barely see the part number on it. This is a Lufkin. That was a little Lufkin hole gauge set. I don't really care too much about that either. Why don't we say 10 bucks on that whole pile? So what am I down to now? 55 or 50 bucks, something like that. Then when I originally called, oh wait, here's another item. This is another item that I wanted, but unfortunately got an issue here. This is an Indicol by SPI. This is a clamp that clamps around your quill on your milling machine, and then you use it to hold an indicator. But there appears to be, from the picture, I think I'm missing one of the components, and we didn't find it anywhere. So there's this little bar and this little clamp here, and then this part right here. So I don't even know if I'm going to be able to use that. So I think I gave 5 bucks for that. So now I must be down to 50 bucks. Then when I originally called him and asked him about, you know, some of the things he had, I asked him if he had any boring heads, and he said he did, and that's what really drove me to go out there, because I was looking for some larger boring heads, hoping to get some deals. And when I first saw this one, I got excited at first because I thought it was a Criterion, but it turns out it's just a it's a cheapy knockoff there. This one says PA 325-3, so I forgot who makes this, but he had said that they've actually used this boring head quite a bit and said that it worked fine. So there's one boring bar in there. So then he found this boring head, but unfortunately this one's really in rough shape, because this is a Bridgeport boring head, Bridgeport brand boring head. So this was actually, back in the day, probably a pretty nice one. It's got a brazed cutter in there. For some reason this tape was over this, because this just turns so easily. I think they were actually using the tape to keep this from turning while it was running, if you can believe that. So I don't even know whether or not that's going to be any good for anything. And then with those came this little rack of boring bars. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And if you count the one that's in here, you get 11 boring bars, and the 2 boring heads, one usable and one broken by the looks of it. I mean, that's probably, say, 25 bucks on this one, 5 bucks for all the bars, 30 bucks there, and this is, we'll call this junk. So basically now 20 bucks? I'm down to 20? Well, I'm not done yet. So on one of the workbenches I spotted this thing here, and this is all carbide inserts. And you guys have seen me go through piles and piles of carbide inserts that I bought cheap, but I've never, I don't think, bought this many carbide inserts this cheap before. So I figure I've got at least 20 bucks worth of carbide inserts, maybe more, in here. And so that brings me down to 0. So that means, as cheap as I bought all of that stuff, anything I show you from here on out is basically gravy. And the first little item I'm going to show you is something I used just the other night. And that's this little #1 Greenard Arbor press. And it doesn't have a plate. And this handle looks like some kind of, I don't know what the heck this handle started its life out as, but this is a nice little press. So I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. Instead of using the big press all the time, maybe I'll have one of these presses. And maybe I'll even find a spot to bolt it down to the workbench somewhere, or figure a way to mount it. But, you know, Greenard's a good press. This is an awfully small one. And the funny thing is, he had two of them. This is another Greenard. This one is another number 1. This one also has this brass Greenard Arbor press serial number tag on it, which is kind of neat. And the other one over here doesn't even have holes for that, so I think this one might be a much earlier one. And this one's got what looks maybe more like an original handle, I don't know. And this one's spring loaded, which basically all that makes it spring loaded is this collar on top with this spring. So I don't even know if that's original. But it's also got a hole in the bottom and a set screw, so there's obviously something can be inserted in there. And the other one is just solid on the bottom. So this one might be the nicer of the two, except this one's seeing kind of a rough life here. I don't know what the heck somebody did here, but there are 2 drill missed marks here where somebody drilled on this thing. I don't know what the deal was there. This one's also missing the plate on the bottom, and this is a very large opening right here, and I'm wondering whether or not that's supposed to be there, or is that machined out by somebody. But anyway, so I got those 2 Arbor presses, and I'm not going to bring it over to the bench because it's a heavy sucker, but I also got this Arbor press. And this one, it's marked Japan. And the only other markings I could find is that little plaque right there that says PM. So I don't know who makes that one, but that doesn't have any cracks in it. It's got the original plate, you know, the rotating plate with the different sizes on it. And it seems like actually a pretty decent Arbor press. It's got to be earlier than the cheap Chinese jobs because of the fact that it's made in Japan. But it's not like a Greenard or an Atlas made in the USA. So I'd say that's somewhere in between there. And I'll tell you what, if I was in the market for an Arbor press, I would definitely keep that one. But those of you guys who know that I have this nice big baby over here. So that's going to be the one I'm going to keep. And that one right there, the Japan one that I just showed you, is smaller than this one, but not that much smaller to make it worth keeping both. And you can't see it, but this is a Dake. So I think this is a Dake number 2 or number 3, I forget. But that's a nice old American steel press. Alright. Okay guys, it's getting late, so I'm getting ready to head upstairs. So I'll have to continue this on another night. But let me show you the last item, or items I should say, from the sale that was included in that whole $140 deal. And that's the Kennedy machinist toolbox that he had. This is the only Kennedy he had. And I got that for a song because that was included in the 140. So, and that includes also all the stuff that's in it. There were some items in there that I left in there, and then there were a few items laying around the bench that I piled in there also, and that was all included in the deal. So we'll delve into that next time I come down.